Shalom, shalom. I'm going to start off this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops, a great millstone that rule well, that teach well while learning truth 100% according to the Bible. I also want to say shalom to the elect, the 144,000 men, prophet servants scattered abroad the four corners of the earth, and shalom to you, Akwaf, which are you sisters that are sincere, your children, shalom. And in today's video is going to be building off of this article that I got here. As you can see from the title, it says President Donald Trump signs the Genius Act to make the United States the crypto capital of the world, right? So we ultimately see where this is headed towards, and we understand the times and the seasons in which it is that we're living in, and we know what the Lord said through the scriptures. I'm going to get this. This is Sirach, also known as Ecclesiasticus chapter 5, verse 15. It says, be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or small. And this is something very important right here in this article that we see, because like I said, we know what time of season we are in. We know the prophecies that are coming, and we know what this is ultimately leading towards, man. That's why it tells us in this precept right here. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. But in the Good News translation, it says, in order to keep Satan, right, meaning the adversary, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, from getting the upper hand over us, right? For we know what his plans are, right? And we know that ultimately the MOTB CHIP is a major part of prophecy. And we know that all of these things in which it is that these devils are putting into place is ultimately to bring forth this chip. And that we know that's ultimately what's going to lead out of this. And this happened during a time when you got everybody, focused on Jeffrey Epstein and people being distracted with all of these other different, fiascos and distractions that these people are putting in front of these people's faces. And this is what these devils are doing in the background. They're setting up everything for this system, man. Because we're living in that time of season where all of these things are about to begin to manifest. The Lord is ultimately speeding up time for the elect's sake, as it says in Matthew 24 and 22. So we know these prophecies are coming quicker. And also this devil knows he only has a short time to ultimately try to establish his new world order. So you're starting to see them move more quickly with trying to bring forth their agenda. And that's what all of these things are ultimately leading towards. So I'm going to actually read this article, right? It's going to be pretty quick. But it says President Donald Trump signed the Genius Act, guiding and establishing national innovation for U.S. stablecoins act, right? So basically those stablecoins is going into, basically a digital currency, man, which is going to be, here in America. And mind you, Donald Trump was at a cryptocurrency meeting maybe a few months back early this year. And he ultimately said at that event that America is going to be the leading country in cryptocurrency. Right. So all of this is going towards the MOTB system, man. Like I said, these things are coming quickly, man. This devil is trying to establish his enterprise, which we know ultimately is going to be short lived. But this man is going to bring forth this chip, man. And we're living in that time of season where these things are about to manifest, man. So it says, Salakia. It says, into law on Friday in a live ceremony, the legislation set regulations for stablecoins and was passed in a bipartisan vote of 308 to 122. At the signing ceremony, Trump said he wants to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world, right? And what you think that is implying, right? You already had RFK Jr., right? That just came out maybe about 2-3 weeks ago and said that within the next 4 years, everybody here in America is going to have a wearable. And we know what that's alluding and what that's implying towards. It's implying this MOTB system, right? That their mindset is that everybody is going to be C-hipped within the next coming weeks, months, or whenever the Lord puts the spirit on these devils to unleash this device, right? But we know that we're living in that time and season, man. So, I'm going to go to this scripture right here. Bear with me. Because we see this is what everything is leading up towards. This is Sirach chapter 12. And I'm going to start at verse 10. It said, never trust thine enemy, right? And who is our enemy? Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. And we know the worser iron rusteth, the worser it becomes. So that's how we're about to see this man behave. Like, he only has a short time to bring in his MOTB system, ultimately to establish his NWO agenda that he seeks to fulfill, which we know is not going to prosper. But this man is trying to move quick with it. So, hey, these devils are about to really start showing their true colors in these times, man. And it says, verse 11, though he humble himself, right, and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust, right, meaning his wickedness, have not been altogether wiped away. And that's what a lot of these people are about to see. Because ultimately, even though he's going to tell people that, oh, this stable coin is going to be good for the U.S., oh, it's going to be better than cash and all of these different things, this devil is going to tell these people things in which it is that they want to hear, ultimately to try to make them take this device. Right, because that's what all of this stuff is leading up towards, Like they say, I'm going to look up that word, gradualism, right? Because this is what we see happening. Everything is gradually leading to the MOTB, man, right? All of these things in which it is we see occurring, That's why you see the U.S. dollar weakening. That's why you see all of these nations leaving the U.S. dollar and joining the BRICS and going to other different parties of people, right? It's weakening the U.S. dollar. And all of this stuff is by design. Because like I said, these elites, their goal is to bring in this chip, and it's going to come. And ultimately it's the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, but he's going to use Esau on the left-hand side to bring in this device, right? And that's the time and season that we're in. So this is the definition of gradualism on the AI overview. It said a policy of gradual reform rather than sudden change or revolution, right? So they're pushing it on people in increments and small little amounts, but it's all leading up towards the chip. That's why they're getting people's minds programmed to accepting this technology, to loving artificial intelligence, and things like that. Because like I said, this is all leading up towards being C-hipped, man. That's why they got people now, they're able to pay for, things with their phone at the click of a little scan, and things like that. They're trying to make everything, so simple and easy for these people in their mind, right? To the point where, hey, they're going to be so conformed to this system that when they do implement the chip, which we know is coming soon, that people is just going to conform. People just going to take it. People not even going to question it. And a lot of these people, they're not going to question it. They're just going to take it, man. But us hopeful elect brothers and sisters, like I read earlier, we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. So we know what all of this stuff is leading up towards, man. And we know what these devils ultimately want to bring about, man. And what they are going to bring about. And that's to try to have full control over the people, man, via this chip, man. So I'm going to finish reading this article, right? So it says, we're going to get back into it. It says, White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs, and the law helps pave the way for American dominance in the crypto industry by creating clear rules of the road and updating archaic payment systems, right? So like I said, mind you, this goes along right around the time where they just stopped making pennies, man, because they said that the value of the pennies, it costs more to make them than their actual worth. So like I said, everything is being pushed towards a cashless society, man, where you won't be able to function in this man's society without having that Charagma, man. All of this is a part of biblical prophecy, man. And we're seeing these prophecies manifest in front of our face, man, here in real time, man. So, that's why we know I'm going to get this precept right here through the Spirit. This is Romans chapter 13, and I'm going to start at verse 11, right? And it said, and that knowing the time, that it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed, right? And that's what we ultimately know. Us hopeful elect brothers and sisters, Yahweh Ratazah, we be of the Lord's elect. We know that we're getting closer to our salvation, man, because we're seeing all of these prophecies manifest. And as the Lord have said, roughly paraphrasing Luke 21 and 28, when thou see these things happening in the earth, look up, for thy redemption draweth nigh. And we're in that time of season where we're starting to see all of these prophecies begin to manifest, man. And that's proving more and more that we're getting closer to the return of our Lord, man. And ultimately closer to our salvation, and being delivered, Lord's will, out of this hell and out of this condition that we're in, man. We're seeing all of these things fastly come to his end, because we know that once this devil brings in his C-hip, that, hey, everything else from there is going to speed up, man. That's why you see all of the tensions happening around the world with World War III. You got Donald Trump just came out and basically threatened Vladimir Putin, said that he got 50 days to come up with a cease deal in Ukraine. So all of this stuff is happening around the same time, man, because like I said, we're living in these prophetic times, man, where the Lord is no longer prolonging his prophecies. He's speeding them up, man. These things are beginning to happen and to manifest more quicker, So I'm actually getting this precept right here as well. Bear with me. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 3. I'm going to read it in the KJV and in the NLT, two translations. It says, for the vision, right, meaning the prophecies, the MOTBC hip is a part of prophecy, is yet for an appointed time, which the Heavenly Father Yahweh have set, right? But we're starting to see these prophecies manifest now in front of our eyes, right? It says, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come and will not tarry. And that's where we're beginning to see that these prophecies are no longer tarrying, that these things are ultimately manifesting very quickly in front of our faces, man. But the only people that can see these things are the Lord's hopeful elect. You sincere Akim and Akwaf out there who the Lord have revealed his secrets unto, who he's allows to know the time and season that we're in, man. Because, hey, we're in the end, man. And a lot of people is about to catch these people off guard, especially these people that are not watching these things. This is Habakkuk 2 and 3 in the NLT. It said the vision, right, is for a future time, right? It describes the end, right? And it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed, right? And we're in that time now where these prophecies are no longer delaying themselves. They're fastly approaching, man. And anybody with eyes can see, if you're paying attention, that, oh, man, that this place America is moving towards a cryptocurrency digital system. And that's what these devils ultimately want to bring into fruition, man. And that's ultimately what Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah is going to allow them to bring, because ultimately all of this is going towards prophecy being fulfilled, right? So these things are going to happen, and we're in that time of season now. So I'm actually going to this precept as well, just being wise in these times, because, hey, we got to be watching, brothers and sisters, because, hey, we're in that time of season, man. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, right? And I'm going to start at verse 3. It said, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape, right? And this is ultimately what they want a lot of people here in America to believe. This is what they got the world view believing, that there's going to be peace with all of these wars, all of these other different conflicts that are happening. This is what they try to instill into the minds of the people. And a lot of these people believe it. But what they don't understand is that we're not living in a time of peace. We're living in a time where the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah, is getting ready to bring forth judgment, man, on a high scale, and we're living in that time now. And we know ultimately this devil ordo ab chaos agenda, they ultimately want the chaos to come before they can bring forth that chip. Because they're going to need an event, right, to bring it in, because they're not just going to be able to force it regularly. They're going to need some type of, event or something ultimately to take place in order for them to establish this system. And we know it's going to come, man. So like I said, we're living in that time now where, hey, anything is bound to happen at any given time, man. Especially with all of these things we see these devils doing, right? We're in that time of season, man. So this is definitely the time to be circumspect, man, to be in the spirit, to be watching, to be praying, to, be seeking the Lord now more than ever, man. Because like I said, we're in that time of season, man, where these prophecies are about to come to pass, man. And it's going to take a lot of these people off guard because they're not watching. These people are not paying attention. They're not seeing the time and seasons that we're in. As the Lord have said in the book of 2nd Esdras chapter 9, verse 1, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. Right. So we're measuring the time diligently. We're looking at what the scriptures have said, and we're applying it with what's happening around us in real time. And we can see that we're at the end of this place, man, that, hey, all of these things are about to manifest. They're about to come to pass. Right. So this is verse 4. It said, but ye brethren are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. Right. So ultimately, when these prophecies actually begin to do manifest and to come to play, we hopeful elect brothers and sisters, Lord's will, we be at that number. These days won't overtake us as a thief because we're already watching these things. We're already up on the current events. We already see all of the laws and the things that these devils are putting into place to ultimately to come with this system. We see everything being set up around us, man. So we're not in the darkness like these people are that are in the world. These 2/3 and these heathens, these people have no idea what's going on around them, man. So it says, verse 5, ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness, right? So we're not going to be in the darkness. We see everything in which it is that this devil's coming with, Verse 6, it said, therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. And that's what we got to be in the spirit of doing, brothers and sisters, now more than ever, watching as well as praying. It tells us to do that in the book of, let me get that. This is 1 Peter chapter 4. And I'm going to start at verse 7 in the KJV, right? And it says, but the end of all things is at hand, right? Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer, right? And all of the end of things is at hand, right? Because we know ultimately once this devil brings this chip on the scene that, hey, not too far from behind that we know that destruction is going to come, man. So we're living in that time now where, like I said, destruction is coming soon, man. We're not living in a time of peace. We're not living in a time of, things getting back better and all of this stuff that people like to believe in their minds. No, we're living in a time where the Lord is about to bring judgment, man. So I'm going to read this again, 1 Peter 4:7. But the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober and watch unto prayer. And that's what you want to be doing consistently. Always praying to Yahweh Shem Yahushua and always watching, man. Watching current events, paying attention to the news, paying attention to what these devils are doing, man. Because like I said, they're always doing something when you thinking there's nothing going on. There's always something that is occurring. And like I said, we're getting one day step closer to prophecy being fulfilled, man. Especially with this chip, man. We're living in that time of season where, hey, these devils can bring in this stuff tomorrow, man, whenever the Lord puts the spirit on them, of course. But we know that we're in that time. So us knowing that we're in this time, we should be sober-minded, man. We should be vigilant. We should be, praying, seeking the Lord more, man. Being circumspect, right? As it tells you in Ephesians 5:15. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, man. But it's wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. And we're living in those evil times, man, where, hey, this devil's about to come with this system, man. Everything is being shaped for it to come into fruition. So I'm going to finish reading this article right here that I got as well. Just a little bit more of it. All right. So it says, I'm going to start right there. It said a stable coin's value is pegged to fiat currency, right? In this case, the U.S. dollar. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are not. The Genius Act makes it law that permitted payment stablecoin in sewers must hold reserves for every dollar of stablecoins. Offer the reserve can be any government-issued asset approved by regulators, such as bank deposits and short-term treasury bills, right? So ultimately, basically what it's saying is that we're getting ready to come into the time where basically the government is going to be in full control over the payment system. That's what all of this stuff is leading up towards. And we know that's what the MOTB system is, right? The system where the government is basically going to be in control over all of the currency. They're going to be over control of what you can buy, be in control over what you can spend your money on, be in control of what you can ultimately, buy, and sell and things of that nature. And that's all part of the prophecies, man, right? It says that right here. This is Revelations 13-16, because this is what everything is moving towards, man. The MOTBC here. It says, and he calls it all, right? That he is talking about these Edomites, man. These devils at the top that are ruling everything. These Rothschilds, these DuPonts, these Gettys, these Rockefellers, all of these other devils that ultimately the Lord have given over the power of the earth to for this moment, right? It tells you in Job 9:24 that the earth is given over into the hand of the wicked, man, right? And those wicked people are the ones that ultimately wants to bring forth this agenda, right? It said, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand on their foreheads. That word mark in the Greek goes into Charagma, man. This devil's going to put a device the size of a grain of rice within your forehead, on your right hand, on your left hand, because it really depends on your power hand. So you got people that are right-handed, they're going to receive it in their right. And you got people that are left-handed, they're going to receive it in their left. So it's whichever hand you use, but you're going to have people putting it in their hands and as well as in their foreheads, man. And this is going to be the new form of payment, right? And that's what we see everything ultimately moving towards, man, right? So this is verse 17. And it says, and that no man might buy or sell save he, right, that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So ultimately, this is what we're pushing towards. And this is what's about to come very soon in the near future, man, that, hey, you won't be able to, pay or buy or, be able to operate in this new society unless you have that chip. That's why this is the time like never before to be seeking the Lord, man, and to be building up your faith and to get right in the spirit. Because like I said, we coming into these times, man, where you're going to have to fully, truly depend upon Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man, for everything, right? Because like I said, us hopeful elect brothers and sisters, Yahweh Ratazah, we be the elect. Of course, we don't plan on taking his mark. And we know it's coming, man. So like I said, this is the time to be getting right with the Lord, to be, building up your faith and trusting in him, man. Because, hey, you're going to need it in these times that we're coming into, man. You know, when all of this stuff, as these people see around them now, crashes, because the American dollar is on it's on a thread, man. It's holding on by a thread. That thing is soon about to be done away with, man. Right? Because like I said, when you look at around the trade and the world and everything that's going on, people is not doing business with the U.S. like that, like they used to back in the early days. So, hey, these devils have to hurry up and switch over to this new system because they're still trying to maintain and hold on to this power that they ultimately feel slipping away from them. Because as we know, as it says in the scriptures, for Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, that second edge of 6 and 9. These devils know ultimately that they only have a certain amount of time to bring forth their NWO agenda, man. And that's why you see them moving quickly with it, man. So like I said, we just got to be in that spirit of constantly watching, man, because things are moving, man, But, hey, that's good because that let us know that we're getting closer and closer to getting the hell up out of here, man, So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say with today's video. Lord's willing, I pray it be edifying. Just something quick through the spirit. To the next time, I'm going to say shalom to the elect.